Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our deep dive on Super Bowl LIX. We know you're probably like getting ready for your watch parties, or maybe you're settling some bets with your friends, or, maybe you're just like super curious about all the details of the game. Either way, we've got you covered. We asked you guys to send us all your Super Bowl related internet searches. And let me tell you, some of them are just pure gold. Seriously, we got searches like Super Bowl and Super Bowl. I mean, even spell check is getting in on the action. But beyond all the, funny typos, what's really interesting is what these searches tell us about what's on everyone's mind leading up to the big game. So I'm going to hand things over to our expert who can kind of decode all of this for us. What are some of the biggest themes you're seeing in all this data?
Well, yeah, you're right about the typos, but even those are interesting, right? I mean, it shows that people are like rushing to get this info like they need it, NOW. And that kind of urgency goes hand in hand with the biggest trend we're seeing, this laser focus on when, where, and how to watch the game. I mean, think about it. We're seeing like a ton of searches for what time does the Super Bowl start? And not just that, but repeated across every time zone you can imagine. It's like everyone's in sync no matter where they are in the world.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. The Super Bowl is like appointment viewing. You don't want to miss a second. But I'm also seeing a ton of searches for streaming options, especially free ones. What's the deal with that? Are people just being savvy and trying to save a few bucks?
Oh, it's definitely more than just that. When you see like hundreds of searches for watch Super Bowl free, it makes you wonder if this is a sign of the times, right? Cable's expensive these days and streaming services add up. And maybe this is how people are making the Super Bowl work, on a budget.
That's so interesting. So it's like the Super Bowl is so big, it's kind of forcing people to rethink how they watch, even if that means like hunting down free streams. Speaking of getting creative, I'm also noticing a lot of searches about specific players, like Eagles quarterback, for example. Are people going beyond just the basic matchup info?
Oh, absolutely. These searches about players, their stats, their backstories, it shows that people are getting invested in those personal narratives within the game. It's not just Team A versus Team B anymore. It's about these individual journeys, these key players who could change the whole outcome.
So it's like everyone's suddenly like a talent scout. Yeah. Analyzing all the players, trying to predict who's going to have a breakout game.
Exactly. And when you see searches for things like Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl wins, you can tell people are thinking about legacies, about how this one game fits into a player's entire career. It's like a reminder that the Super Bowl is more than just one night. It's a piece of history being made.
Wow. I never thought of it like that. You know what else is interesting? I'm seeing a bunch of searches for past Super Bowls, too, like games from years ago. Is that just like hardcore fans taking a trip down memory lane? Or is there something more to it?
It really is fascinating. I think the searches for past Super Bowls are about more than just nostalgia. I think they're also about remembering that the Super Bowl is a cultural touchstone. We connect it to like memories and conversations even where we were in our lives at that time. It becomes this shared experience across different years and even generations.
So the Super Bowl is kind of like this collective memory bank, something that brings us together through those shared experiences.
Exactly. And speaking of shared experiences, we can't ignore all the searches about odds predictions and who will win. What do you make of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've definitely placed a bet or two myself, but it seems like it goes beyond just casual betting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like people don't just want to watch the Super Bowl. They want to be part of it. Maybe feel like they have some kind of control over what happens.
So it's not just about rooting for your team anymore. It's about testing your knowledge, making those predictions, and adding that extra layer of excitement to the game. I do wonder, though, does that focus on predictions take away from just enjoying the game itself? It's like people are more interested in being right than in the actual surprises.
That's a really good question. And I honestly don't think there's an easy answer. Maybe for some people, yeah, the thrill of the bet overshadows the game. But for others, maybe it's just another way to deepen their engagement, to feel more connected to what's happening on the field.
Yeah, I can see that. There are definitely different ways to be a fan. But speaking of all this prediction stuff, I'm also noticing a lot of searches about betting itself. And not just who's going to win, but things like Super Bowl prop bets. What's the story with those?
Ah, prop bets. Now that's where things get really interesting. We're talking about betting on things like the length of the national anthem, the color of the Gatorade shower, even if the coin toss will be heads or tails.
No way. You got to tell me. What's your go-to prop bet?
Well, I don't want to reveal my strategy just yet. But it is fascinating to see how popular these prop bets are getting. They just add this whole new level of complexity and engagement. People can bet on even the smallest details.
So it's not just about predicting the big picture. It's about finding those tiny little potential wins within the game.
Exactly. It shows just how creative and dedicated Super Bowl fans are, always finding new ways to get more involved.
And I bet all those prop bets are fueled by online platforms, right? It seems like the internet has totally changed the way we bet on the Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. It's easier than ever to research prop bets, place your wagers, and even track your results. It's a whole different world than it was a few years ago.
So we've got people searching for when and where to watch.
Mhm.
They're digging into player stats, placing bets, and even reminiscing about past Super Bowls. What else is standing out to you in all this data?
Well, one thing that's really striking is just the sheer range of information people are looking for. It's not just about the game itself anymore. It's about the entire Super Bowl experience. We're seeing searches for pregame shows, halftime performances, even recipes for Super Bowl snacks, party ideas, DIY decorations.
Hold on. Did you say DIY Super Bowl decorations?
Yeah.
What's going on out there?
It's amazing, right? People are turning their homes into mini stadiums, complete with theme snacks, team colors, even replica Lombardi trophies.
I guess that just proves that the Super Bowl is way more than a game.
It really is. It's this cultural phenomenon that goes way beyond the football field. It's about celebrating, connecting with friends and family, indulging in some friendly competition, and of course, enjoying some delicious food.
You know, it's funny, when you really think about it, these simple search queries tell us a lot about human behavior. What we search for online reveals a lot about what we're worried about, what we want, even our sense of community.
I know, right? What's so interesting here is how these searches highlight our need for connection, for shared experiences, for that sense of belonging. And the Super Bowl, with its huge cultural impact, it's the perfect backdrop for all of that.
So as we get ready for Super Bowl LIX,
Yeah.
it's clear that the internet's going to be buzzing with activity, reflecting all the excitement and anticipation of fans everywhere.
Absolutely. And that online buzz is going to continue long after the game is over. People are going to be revisiting highlights, sharing their reactions, debating those key moments.
Well, we'll be back after a quick break to dig even deeper into what these searches tell us about ourselves and how our relationship with this iconic event is changing.
That'll be fun.
All right, so we're back and ready to really dive into the next level of this Super Bowl search data. Before the break, we were talking about how the Super Bowl has become this huge cultural event, an excuse to throw parties and decorate your house and really get into the whole experience. But I want to shift gears for a sec and talk about what happens after the game is over. What are people searching for once the confetti is settled?
Oh, that's when things get really interesting. Remember all those searches about predictions? Well, after the game, it's all about validation. Or maybe a little bit of, I told you so.
Oh, yeah, totally. People are going to be checking the final score, rewatching the highlights, maybe even arguing about those controversial calls.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the halftime show that always creates a ton of buzz online.
You're so right. Just imagine the searches. Rihanna's Super Bowl set list, best Super Bowl commercials, maybe even, did anyone else see that weird thing the mascot did? It's like everyone suddenly becomes a commentator, breaking down every detail, sharing their thoughts, and contributing to this huge online conversation.
So it's like the Super Bowl is this digital earthquake, sending shockwaves through the internet before, during, and after the game.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. And those shockwaves can tell us a lot about what we're interested in, what we care about, even our anxieties. The way we search for information shows how we process these big cultural moments.
Okay, I got to ask, were there any searches that totally surprised you? Anything you weren't expecting to see?
You know what? I was kind of surprised by how many searches there were for Super Bowl rings for sale.
Wait, seriously? People are trying to buy Super Bowl rings online.
Apparently so. It seems like some fans are taking their love of memorabilia to a whole new level.
Wow. I guess there's a market for everything. But it makes you wonder, are they looking for authentic rings or replicas? And why would anyone want to own a piece of Super Bowl history, especially if it's not even their team's ring?
Those are great questions. It would be fascinating to dig deeper into that, to understand the motivations behind those searches. Maybe it's about feeling connected to the winning team. Or maybe it's about owning a tangible symbol of success.
It's like these searches are little clues, hinting at the deeper emotions and desires that surround the Super Bowl. Speaking of deeper emotions, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the Super Bowl as a cultural touchstone. What exactly does that mean? And how do we see that reflected in these searches?
It means that the Super Bowl is more than just a game. It's a shared experience that connects us through memories, traditions, and cultural references.
So it's woven into the fabric of our society, influencing our conversations, our fashion choices, even what we eat.
Exactly. And we can see that in the search data. People are looking up old Super Bowl commercials, iconic halftime show moments, even recipes for classic Super Bowl snacks.
So it's not just about the game itself. It's about reliving those shared experiences
Yeah.
and connecting with the history of the event.
Exactly. And that connection to the past is also tied to our excitement for the future. We're seeing searches for next year's Super Bowl location ticket information, even speculation about who might perform at halftime.
So the Super Bowl is almost like this cyclical event. Each year we build on those memories from past Super Bowls while looking forward to the next one.
It's amazing how one event can capture both our nostalgia for the past and our excitement for the future.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking a lot about the online side of the Super Bowl, the searches, the predictions, the post-game analysis. But let's not forget about the real-world impact of the game. All those Super Bowl parties and gatherings.
Oh, right. That's the heart of the Super Bowl experience. We can't forget about those searches for recipes, decorations, and party game ideas. It's a reminder that the Super Bowl is also about spending time with friends and family, sharing food, laughing, and having some fun competition.
It's like a national excuse to have a party. And those parties are often just as important as the game itself.
Absolutely. They're a chance to create new memories, strengthen relationships, and experience the joy of celebrating together.
But let's be real. Even the most dedicated partygoers are probably going to sneak a peek at their phones during the commercials. I know I do.
Of course. It's all part of the multifaceted Super Bowl experience. We're engaged with the game, the food, the people around us, and the online world. It's sensory overload in the best possible way.
So there's this interesting interplay between the physical and digital worlds, with the Super Bowl at the center of it all. What does that tell us about how we experience these big events in today's world?
I think it shows how our experiences are becoming more and more blended, with the digital and physical constantly intersecting and influencing each other.
So it's not just about watching the Super Bowl on TV anymore. It's about engaging with it on all these different levels, through searches, social media live streams, and those in-person gatherings.
Exactly. The Super Bowl has become this multi-platform interactive experience where the lines between the real and digital worlds are blurred.
And that blurring of lines opens up so many new possibilities for how we connect with each other and experience the Super Bowl.
It's a fascinating evolution, and I think we're just at the beginning. As technology keeps advancing, I can only imagine how the Super Bowl experience will continue to change and grow.
I can't wait to see what future Super Bowls will be like. But for now, let's focus on what's happening right now. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring all these Super Bowl searches and what they tell us about ourselves as fans and as a society. But what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember? What's the main aha moment that comes out of all this data?
You know, the biggest takeaway for me is that the Super Bowl is much more than just a game. It's a reflection of who we are, what we believe in, and how we connect with each other. These seemingly simple search queries give us a glimpse into our anxieties, desires, and hopes.
So it's like a mirror to our culture, showing our passions, our quirks, even our sense of humor.
Exactly. And as we continue to explore the digital world, we're sure to find even more fascinating insights into ourselves and the world around us.
This deep dive has definitely given me a new perspective on the Super Bowl. I'm looking at my own searches in a whole new light.
That's the power of data. It can challenge our assumptions, broaden our viewpoints, and ultimately help us understand ourselves and the world better.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, as you're watching the Super Bowl, pay attention to what's happening online. Maybe even do some searching of your own. You might be surprised by what you find.
And who knows, maybe your search will end up being the most popular one of the night.
Yeah.
Stay curious, explore the digital world, and remember, there's always something new to learn.
All right, so we talked about all the pregame excitement, the postgame analysis, even like people trying to buy Super Bowl rings online. But before we wrap up this whole Super Bowl deep dive, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, that idea of the Super Bowl being like a cultural mirror. What does that actually mean? And how do we see that playing out in these search trends?
Well, it means that the Super Bowl isn't just like a one-time thing, you know. It's woven into our lives, reflecting our values, our worries, even our sense of humor. Think about it. We see people searching for everything, from the game itself to Super Bowl party recipes, fashion trends, even like social commentary on the commercials. It's like a mini version of our society playing out on this giant global stage.
It's like the Super Bowl is this magnifying glass,
Yeah.
showing us all the good and bad parts of our culture.
Exactly. And what's really cool is how those reflections change over time. Remember those searches for past Super Bowls? Those aren't just about nostalgia. They're about seeing how our culture has shifted. What people thought was funny or controversial 10 years ago might be totally different today.
You know, it's funny. Even the way we search has changed. I bet if we looked at Super Bowl searches from like 20 years ago, they would be way simpler. Like, what time is the game or who's playing?
Yeah.
But now it's like everyone's a detective, digging deeper, analyzing every little thing.
Yeah, it's true. The internet has given us so much power to find information, to connect with others, to even create our own stories around events like the Super Bowl. We're not just watching anymore. We're actively participating, creating, and sharing content. We're shaping the whole conversation.
So the Super Bowl has become this like dynamic, interactive experience.
Yeah.
Driven by the curiosity and engagement of millions of fans.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to study. It's like this constantly changing thing, adapting to new technologies, new trends, new ways of thinking.
Okay, so before we get too philosophical, I gotta
Oh,
ask, any predictions for what the most searched term will be after the Super Bowl ends? What's going to be that phrase that sums up Super Bowl LIX?
That's a tough one. There are so many possibilities. But I have a feeling it's going to be something about a specific moment in the game. Like a game-winning touchdown, a controversial call, maybe even a wardrobe malfunction during the halftime show. Those are the moments that really stick with us, the ones we keep replaying in our heads and talking about online.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It's like everyone becomes an instant replay expert, analyzing every detail and debating what that one moment really means.
Exactly. And it's those conversations, those shared reactions
Yeah.
that make the Super Bowl such a lasting part of our collective memory.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a new perspective on the Super Bowl. It's so much more than just a game. It's this cultural phenomenon that tells us a lot about who we are and how we connect with each other.
Absolutely. And as we move further into this digital age, that connection is only going to grow stronger. The Super Bowl will keep changing, keep surprising us, keep challenging us, and who knows what amazing insights we'll find along the way.
So to everyone listening out there, while you're enjoying Super Bowl LIX, remember you're not just watching a game. You're part of something much bigger. You're part of a cultural experience shaped by millions of people before you. And you're adding to a legacy that will continue long after the game ends.
Enjoy the game, enjoy the snacks, and enjoy the excitement. And don't forget to keep an eye on those search trends. You never know what they might reveal.
Thanks for joining us on this Super Bowl deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exciting journey into the world of information.